What's going on, everybody? It's Saturday. I want to do a really quick video because this came up and it was a little bit of a battle. So what we're talking about is contingencies. I'm going to do a full video on this, and it's going to be a deep dive. It's going to be structured strictly for buyers, I think, is how I'm going to do it. But I wanted to sort of talk about contingencies and how they work, specifically the loan contingency, because that's the big battle that just took place, right? So what is a contingency? Let me start off with, imagine you're buying your dream home, right? And you're almost to the finish line, and the seller says, you need to lift your loan contingency now or we're going to cancel. And this is what we're dealing with one particular file I'm working on. And, the agent, who's a newer agent, is kind of like, well, what do I do? Unfortunately, that agent went to their broker. The broker really didn't give a lot of support on guiding that person, just said, oh, well, just lift the contingency. It's not a big deal. Here's the challenge. So what is a contingency? A contingency is, it's basically like a checkpoint. It's a checkpoint, right? So as you're moving through your home purchase, there's these different little checkpoints that you need to hit while moving forward in good faith. And that's kind of the key word, moving forward in good faith. So let's start off from the beginning. You have a buyer, you have a seller. One wants to sell their house, the other person says, I want to buy your house. They come together, they create a contract, a binding contract that says, I'm purchasing, I'm selling. In order to sell, in order to buy, we want to make sure that certain wickets are hit or certain checkpoints are hit to show that we're moving forward in good faith. So one of them, earnest money deposit. Somebody puts in earnest money, says, I'm coming in with a little bit of money to show good faith that I want to purchase your property. The seller is going to do certain things in good faith as well in order to make sure that they could sell their home to you. But the big one, like I said, we're going to be focused on the buy side. So what are the things that we're looking at on the buy side? Well, your inspection contingency. Well, we want to inspect the homes. We're going to bring in an inspector to inspect the house to make sure that, there's no health or safety challenges. Sometimes they'll walk in and go, oh my gosh, the whole place is full of mold. Depending on how you're buying the house or what your point and purpose is of the house, that could be bad, right? But most people don't want to buy a house full of mold. So you have your inspection contingency. They're going to say, come in, do the inspection. Here's the inspection report that we got. And we're setting in what's called a request for repairs. The sell side can choose to repair. The sell side can choose not to repair. And the buy side can choose to accept or not accept. But there's these different little checkpoints. So there's the inspection contingency. There's an appraisal contingency. So will it appraise at value for the money that you're borrowing on that home? There's a loan contingency. Am I able to get financing in order to purchase that house? There's a title contingency. Is it clear title to where when I buy it, it's mine free and clear of any encumbrances, right? And then there's some other little ones that you could put in here and there, but it just depends on but those are the big ones. So let's talk about the loan contingencies. I'm going to give you a scenario what I'm dealing with right now. And then I'm going to tell you how this can go wrong sometimes. But again, I'm going to do a deep dive all about contingencies. I'll post that up probably Monday. So here's the scenario. We're coming up on the loan contingency. The loan overall was submitted about a week, almost 2 weeks prior to us hitting the loan contingency. So we moved really, really fast. But the underwriter said, hey, they sent in a really ugly, full-on infested termite house. In order for us to even get clear to close, we want to make sure that we have a clearance on that house, a termite clearance on that house, that it has been treated and been dealt with. Otherwise, we won't even do a clear to close. What you're fighting for on the loan contingency is the clear to close. Sometimes on termite, there's two different ones. If it's conventional loan, we don't always need the termite. A majority of the time, we don't need the termite clearance in order to close on a conventional loan. But for pretty much any other loan, this one in specific is a VA loan. Pretty much on any other loan product, if there's a termite inspection, especially in the state of California, and every state's going to be a little bit different, but California is known for pest, especially on a VA loan. That's the big one. Per the VA guidelines, in the state of California, there has to be this inspection and treatment. So sometimes I could push the I can push that condition because it comes out in what's called a conditional approval. So the bank says, we approve your loan with these conditions. You meet these conditions and we'll give you money. That's where we get the clearance for the loan, right? The clear to close. Well, usually I can push a termite clearance to prior to funding. So as long as I get the termite clearance prior to funding, then we're good. However, if it's a dirty clearance specifically to a VA loan, the underwriter said, nope, we need it before the clear to close. So we go back with a lot of time, way ahead of time, to the seller and say, hey, we need this clearance in order for us to get clear to close and fulfill the loan contingency so we can lift that loan contingency and move forward in good faith to the purchase of your home. Well, the seller didn't like that. They said, well, we're not doing it. We're going to do it whenever we want to. In fact, we may just do it after we close. Here's the thing. Can't do that. The bank can't do it. And when we talk about moving forward in good faith, part of that, especially when you get into, there's federal guidelines on VA, but in California specific, where this loan is, to the car, when we start getting into the car forms, very specifically, there are paragraphs that talk to this in particular. Actually, I'm going to pull it up real quick, so I'll tell you exactly what the paragraphs are that I'm talking about. So there's one specifically, paragraph 14C, the buyer is not required to remove contingencies unless the conditions have been fully satisfied. But we go to paragraph 9B, the seller has a duty to cooperate with providing documentation needed for financing. The seller has a duty. That's the contract that they signed. So what they were doing was threatening, well, if you don't lift contingencies, we're going to kick you out. Well, it turns out you can't legally. And if you do, you got a legal battle on your hand. But not only that, you got to think about it. Who's also at play here? Neutral third party is escrow. Escrow can't cancel that if we're still within contract. So the buyer can still force them to sell legally. Now, of course, there's always, if somebody just doesn't want to, they don't want to, and then they deal with the legal repercussions of it later. So long story short, I told the agent, hey, let me jump in here. Let me start sending off all the stuff very specific to federal law. When we start jumping into the federal law for this very specifically, and then if you want to get into the federal laws, this is where we jumped into. There's VA specific, and then there's federal specific. So pest areas within California for the VA has to be done prior to CTC. You can always look that up in the VA's official lender handbook, but there's specific references, Chapter 12, Section 13, wood destroying insect information. So that's just for that. Then, of course, you have the car paperwork, and then we could even keep going a little bit deeper if we want to jump into all the really, really fun stuff, which not everybody wants to talk about, but RESPA, TILA, all the other fun, exciting acronyms. Basically, just think CFPB, okay? So I guarantee this happens to to buyers and agents all the time. You're being asked or forced or bullied into lifting loan contingencies or different types of contingencies. Here's the key. Always move forward in good faith. Be diligent. Move as quickly as possible. But keep in mind, if the sell side for any reason is not providing information, paperwork, or something else in order for you to fulfill that contingency, the onus is on the seller, not on the buyer. So as you move closer to that date, it needs to scale to the right based off of the seller and their choices or not choices. So on this one in particular, they're not doing it. The contingency date is on Monday, next Monday. They aren't doing the treatment until Monday, which means I probably won't get the paperwork until Tuesday. And then I still have to submit for CTC, which can take 24, 48 hours, sometimes 72 hours directly from the lender or the bank, which you've heard different videos that I've done. So can they unilaterally kick out the borrower or the buyer from the contract? No, they sure can't. They can attempt to, but again, then they're going to lose legally in that regard. But there are also different unique ways that you use the contract, which within the RPA specific California, it gives you extra 5 days on top of wherever that notice to perform, whenever they actually issue the notice to perform. And maybe I'll do that different video on that. But within the contract, if you're fulfilling your part, you're moving forward in good faith, it gives you an extra 5 days, which would give us a clear to close anyways, and then we still move forward. But here's the reality. Sometimes people are just pricks. It just is what it is. Sometimes people are just pricks. So make sure you sit down, focus, study, know what you know. If you're a real estate agent, and if you watch a lot of my really old videos, my biggest issue with real estate agents is a lot of agents are overpaid, undereducated, and arrogant. Don't act overpaid, don't be undereducated, and don't be arrogant. Learn your contracts. Sit down and read them. If you don't understand them, get with a broker. If your broker can't help you, there's so many different places where you can get information. There's a ton of stuff on YouTube. ChatGPT is fantastic as well. You can a wealth of information there, or get around a seasoned agent that inside and out. And if you have a compliance department at your brokerage, talk to the compliance rep. Almost always, the people that are doing compliance know those contracts inside and out. And if you're really blessed and you have a friend that's a real estate attorney, that's where I've learned the majority of what's in here is from hanging out with real estate attorneys. Unbelievable how much information you get from them. Anyways, that's all I got today. I just want to do a really quick one. Like I said, I'll do a deep dive strictly on contingencies, what they are, when to lift them, how to protect yourself, and what to do if anything comes up like that. That's all I got today. Appreciate you, and I'll talk to you all later.